back to our channel. This video is part 2 of a 2-part series, so be sure to watch our first video on biodiversity. Like the title says, this is our first lab and we are so excited. This is a great opportunity for you as our viewers to engage in a hands-on way with us and our content. For today's lab activity, we are making a food web. A food web is a system of interlocking and non-interlocking food chains. A food chain is a hierarchical series of organisms, each dependent on the next as a source of food. This means that there are tiers or levels of organisms in a food web. The producers are at the bottom, as they are the most essential and provide food to consumers. There are more levels of consumers. The first consumers, which are called primary consumers, because they are the first organisms to receive the energy from the producers. That's why they're called primary, which means first. Then we have secondary consumers who eat the primary consumer or receive the energy secondhand. For example, a primary consumer could be an urchin or a small fish or an invertebrate that gets eaten by a secondary consumer like a crab or an otter. The more diverse an ecosystem, the more consumer levels you can have. So with that, let's get into the lab. Here is a list of all of the organisms we will be drawing or printing. You're welcome to do this in any order, but feel free to follow along as well as draw our organisms and their connections in their environment. In this case, we have plant plankton and kelp species creating energy as producers. So let's draw our plant plankton and kelp. Try to draw this in a corner of your paper or your writing surface. That way we still have room for our other species. Next, we have species that directly eat the kelp or plankton. These species include small fish, crabs, urchins, drift algae, and filter feeders. Let's draw them. Pause the video if you need more time. These are classified as primary consumers. The funny thing about these webs are that even though a crab and an urchin are primary consumers, meaning they receive the energy firsthand, they are also secondary consumers because they eat or ingest other organisms that did not produce the energy themselves. The tertiary consumers, which means third, they receive the energy and nutrients third. Tertiary consumers include otters, crabs, large fish, and more. So let's draw our tertiary consumers. I'm going to put the fish towards the top and the sea otter and crab towards the top as well. Feel free to pause the video if you need more time. Next, we'll draw our arrows. Our arrows connect the relationships between organisms. If an arrow is going from one organism to another, that means, if we were to take the kelp for example, if you have an arrow going from the kelp to the urchin, that means the urchin is consuming the kelp. Take a minute and pause the video if you'd like, or just observe for a little bit at all of the arrows and in the directions in which they go. The arrows typically start at the bottom of our drawing and move upwards towards the large fish and the sea otter. The point of this exercise was to show you why each and every organism is important in an ecosystem. If you were to remove a species from this little food web, other organisms would suffer, and it's possible that the species you removed was critical to the stability of the ecosystem. Those species that are critical to the stability of the ecosystem are called keystone species. Without them, something in the environment begins to take over, and the environment begins to degrade and fall apart. In our kelp forest example, otters are a keystone species. If you were to remove the otters, the urchins would eat up all the kelp that was beneficial to the other species in the kelp forest environment. This causes massive changes to the environment and can often lead to the destruction of the ecosystem itself. But by helping the otters return to this ecosystem, a balance is returned and the ecosystem becomes stable again. If you would like to continue working on this lab activity, you can try pulling one of the organisms from the ecosystem and erasing all of the lines that it was connected to other organisms, and you can see the true impact of how an organism directly affected other species. Feel free to tell us how it went. You can contact us at our work email, yearntolearnor@gmail.com, or you can reach out through the comments. We'll be enabling them on this video. That's all for today's lesson on biodiversity. As always, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to look in the description below in the videos to come soon. Our website goes up, so make sure to keep an eye out for that. We hope you tune in to another video soon, and with that, stay safe and keep yearning for learning.